So it's with delight that I welcome Christine Beck here as our featured reader tonight. She has been recently named the Poet Laureate of West Hartford, so we're very proud of you for that. Christine is a dear friend of the Guilford Poets Guild. Last winter, she was a guest poet with us, and so we had the pleasure of workshopping with her twice a month, and that was great fun. Christine has an MFA from Southern Connecticut State University, and she teaches creative writing, poetry, and literature at Southern and at the University of Hartford and in other workshops as well. Christine is probably the most generous poet that I know. She'll do anything to make poetry flourish for the poet, for the general public that might just be becoming interested in poetry. She just works like an ever-ready bunny. I'm sorry for the cliche. She is on the board and the former president of the Connecticut Poetry Society. And while she was president, she initiated a group, the Greater New Haven chapter of the Connecticut Poetry Society, and that group is still meeting monthly to workshop poems together. It's a workshop that's open to anyone. Poets are invited to bring 10 copies of their poem to share and to get supportive feedback in their writing. Laura and Vic are members that come often, and it's a great thing. And so if anyone here would like to attend, the next one is September 19th at 10:15, meeting at the Miller Memorial Library in Hamden on Dixwell Street. So it's a nice event. Christine also started last year POP, Poets on Poets, and that's a program that is at the Hartford Downtown Library. The next meeting is September 26th, and that's at 10:15 to noon. And at that meeting, Ginny Connors is going to be exploring poems of Jane Hirschfield's in Jane's book, Thief Come. Jane Hirschfield, as you might know, will be reading at the University of Hartford October 7th at 7 p.m. She's a California poet, for anyone who doesn't know, so it's a privilege to get to hear her read. Back to Christine. She's also on the board of Riverwood, a poetry series in Hartford, and she's treasurer of that, and a few other things as well, perhaps. And, you know, it's really quite amazing that Christine also has time to write poetry. She does so much. I don't know where she finds the time. She's won an award for her mini chapbook, the Charlotte Chronicles. She has a book coming out very shortly from Dancing Girl Press, and it's called I'm Dating Myself. Go figure. and she is also the author of a book, Blinding Light, that was published in 2013. Christine uses both sides of her brain while she's writing, for sure. She brings her experience as a former lawyer and as a professor of law to her creative process of writing poetry. In Blinding Light, the whole book was, the seed of it was, she was in the Louvre in Paris with a daughter and looking at paintings of Madonna, and she saw one painting by Strozzi, the Madonna of Justice, and that just made her start thinking, here's a mother. Is law more important to her than her child? And then that got her to intertwine different elements of her own mother, of her being a mother, of her daughters, and the way she weaves these things in and out is fantastic. So without further ado, help me welcome Christine to the podium.
And I want to so thank the Guilford Poets Guild for inviting me to be a guest member. 3 of the poems I'll be reading tonight are poems I workshopped with you. And so I hope for you can see that your good criticism and workshop comments played out into a revision. I always love to see, what comes with the revised poem. So again, thank you to the Guilford Poetry Guild. Had a wonderful time with workshopping with you, and also to this beautiful art gallery. It is truly extraordinary. And Evelyn is absolutely right, although I am wearing Evelyn's favorite color. This is my favorite color. So, yes, it's all true. Things happen for a reason. So what I'm going to be doing this evening, as you can see, is I'm going to be doing what's called a song and refrain. Some people call it a call and response. It has many different names. But basically, I took a series of poems from my book, Blinding Light, and I decided that I would work with them under categories and then bring to you other work that I've done that in some way reflects back on the work that I did in Blinding Light. So we shall see whether you feel this is successful or not. The categories I chose were 1, visitors and prophets, 2, motherhood, and 3, mysteries. So I'm going to read the song poems in each category, and then I'm going to read the refrains. So from Blinding Light, the title poem of the collection. While you were waiting for the blinding light, the sound of harps, a filmy float of silk, a voice like your kindergarten teacher, was the angel lurking like the Fuller Brush man, shabby suit, the glazed look of perpetual rejection etched into the corners of his eyes. Did you expect a voice from CNN, crisp, backed by research, no dialect, straight-haired, tasteful jewelry, no distracting dazzle? What is an angel anyway? Emissary of a higher power that threatens frogs, plague, or immolation if you don't buckle under, resist the impulse to look back, pack your bags, and slink out to the wilderness. What if the angel said, "Don't get comfortable. I'm sending you to Trenton"? Would you say, like Mary, "Let it be"? Or would you be stunned? The angel brilliant as a lynx stalking something in high grass, you now begin to see the prey. My next angel poem. What if an angel warned? Don't look back. Don't mourn your past. Days of pomegranate juice, tart promise on the tongue. Run. Forget your garden, neighbors, friends. Get out while you can. Map the route. Bring woolens for mountain weather. Hold photos close to hand. My linen skirt grows limp, dispirited. Snags on brambles, tendrils shred to stubbornness, a winding sheet. My hair heavies, limbs refuse to sprint. What about the irises, their purple lips arrayed against orange poppies. My last thought as I turn, engulfed by curtains of regret, how glorious to savor salt on melon. And the third one in this collection is called Naming Rights. It's got a Roman numeral 2 because I have 2 naming rights poems in this collection. Naming Rights 2. As a girl, Mary heard of Jacob, who stole the birthright from his brother Esau, then fled to foreign lands. Jacob, who returned, slept in the desert, a rock beneath his head, awakened by an evildoer. Jacob wrestled through the night, aware the man must not be mortal. Something sinister and lucent was seeping through his sweat. An avenging angel sent as final judgment for deceit. Jacob grabbed the angel by his heel, would not apologize. If this was an angel, why not twist a blessing from him? Jacob got both a blessing and a title, father of the nation Israel. The rest, a straight line of begats. What hubris of a man to battle light or right, wings or waves, anything that can't be tamed or understood. A plot in which a man faced immortality and lived, as if a man could touch God's skin and not incinerate. She decides that if she ever has a son, she'll name him Jacob. It turns out that she has no choice, not even in this matter of the naming. When her angel comes, no wrestling, just an order. You must name him Jesus. A command that twists her into braids of doubt. She accepts Immaculate Conception, that it's a boy, no choice involved. But in her heart, she names him Jacob. In her heart, a small defiance lingers. He'll be Jacob, a name that means he takes an angel by the heel. And you'll see, I hope, in the refrain that the theme of light appears again in this poem written this summer in Santa Fe. What bears the light? Pinyon trees, once full-fleshed, abundant among sand and scrub, now bare, blighted by voracious bugs, deadly as the plague of locusts, sent to strip bare the arrogance of Pharaoh. They bear a holy light. They bend, twist, reach out in a pattern of grace and beauty, stark against the blue-swept skies of Santa Fe. How can death stand such magnificence, such hope? What does the pinyon say to the copse of juniper, the cactus, to the hopping jackrabbits, the skittering of lizards? Wait. Just wait. I will return. And an angel of a different sort, Rufus. Dan found it at 7 a.m., opening the screen door to get the paper, saw its puppy face looking soulful like Sparky, now dead these 30 years. No, thought Dan, not going there again. No, he said sternly, opening the gate. Go home. The puppy sat. Go. Go. No go. He bent to see if it was injured. The puppy squirmed, licked his hand, tail wagging, as if he had been waiting, as if he knew his job in life was to collect the New York Times and drop it at Dan's feet. Shit, thought Dan. If Billy sees this dog, there'll be no hope. Not knowing that hope, his hope, of being petless and serene, had already closed the gate and was whistling down the sidewalk, its jaunty hat akimbo. Shit. How can I hide this goddamn happy puppy who looks a little hungry, who maybe needs a drink? That's how it starts, he thinks. Billy was still sleeping. His mom was visiting her cousin in Arizona. Dan and Billy pored over her postcards, trying to divine her intentions. Right now, thought Dan, I need a plan. He didn't know the puppy would be called Rufus, that it would curl up on Billy's bed like a comma. Didn't know the postcards were goodbye notes. Dan didn't know that upstairs at the window, the curtain had already parted. Billy, his face alight, pulling on his jaunty winter cap. And the third in Visitors and Prophets, you'll hear the prophet here, is called Revelation, and I workshopped this with the Guilford group. One Sunday afternoon in January, driving west on Fern, I saw a red sun, low and huge, looming so outsized to the sky, the street, my life, that I was sure, this is it, the apocalypse. It will be fire, after all. Yet cars passed by, no one braking, no one throwing open doors, no one on his knees, no one calling mother, no conflagration, not even smoke. My radio continued playing Mozart, no wah-wah of the early warning system, no sirens, fire trucks, or ambulance. Silence on a Sunday afternoon. Alone in my astonishment, I had no one to tell, no one to pull over, no arm to grab, to point as Lucifer and his minions hurtled overhead. Then the sun began to move, inched toward the sea, although I couldn't see the sea. A prophet without proof. Now we're on to motherhood, and I hope that you don't hear any hallmark moments in these motherhood poems. As you've gathered, I'm sure, Blinding Light is a braided meditation, and part of it, as Evelyn mentioned, has to do with the vision of Mary as someone who feels justice is important, and my thinking about the Madonna and justice, and her relationship with her son. So this poem is called Rewind. When she rewinds the plot and plays it through the centuries, Mary wonders what the 30 years were for. For Jesus could have shown up fully formed like Adam. God knew how to make a man, make a human, give him choice. She wonders what the 30 years were for surely Jesus didn't need to practice as a carpenter, study Torah for the rules. Why the 30 years? Unless perhaps they weren't about the son. For him to fall in love with life, to feel the wood smooth under fingers. Perhaps the plan was diabolic. Give her 30 years to fall in love with him. Why would God desire to make a woman suffer more than needed for the sacrifice? She rewinds the story, tries to see the moment when love turned into dread, when she began to feel the final scene, began to fear the master plan. Unless, of course, the sacrifice was not his life, but hers. The one left keening, the one left just alive. Lex Maternus, which I made up, the law of mothers, in Latin. So if anyone knows Latin, you can check me on that. Lex Maternus. The justice of the mothers, like water, seeking its own level, beautiful but dangerous. See the matrons of El Salvador, women of all ages robed in shapeless black, wrinkled no longer caring for the camera. White scarves surround their faces. Huge spectacles reflect the glare of the lenses of the photojournalists. These women should be cooking dinner, sprinkling especias in the evening meal, cutting blooms, humming ancient tunes. Instead, they brandish photographs, portraits of their men, dark-eyed, solemn, some taken in the first sweet flush of love. Husbands, fathers, brothers, sons. They are los desaparecidos, the disappeared. Men who dared to write an article, give someone a ride. The photos twirl and curl, faded edges fray. The women stay, cannot be pushed away. They stand as accusation. They stand as gravestones. And as I said, this is a braided narrative, so it does also contain poems about my motherhood and my mother's motherhood, and that's what you'll hear here in Swans and Hearts. At 20, married with a baby girl, my mother stared down days like furrows, deep as tractor ruts in mud. She picked up needles, grew expert at knitting Fair Isle collars, Argyle socks, sweaters with moose heads, front and back, mohair Afghans, yellow as an egg yolk. She wrapped us up in deep blue sweaters, knit through hours, waiting for my dad to come back home, knit through broken promises, knit, waiting for doctors, calculating how many stitches she had left. My daughter asked for a sweater when she turned 5. She wanted swans and hearts. I, mother of the quick fix, the good enough, always sure the inside wouldn't show, was stumped. Swans and hearts would take some planning. I found my mother's needles in her knitting bag, faded stripes of silk with narrow pockets sewn inside. Did I have it in me? The knowledge of the fingers, which way to wrap the yarn, how to transfer stitches, cast on, cast off. They say it's based on instinct, like mothering, no need for Dr. Spock. I feared I had the instincts of a coat rack. I picked bright pink, with white swans on a turquoise sea, coaxed out a pattern, calculated colors, knit one row at a time. The swans and hearts began to grow, separated on the right side, but underneath, linked by strands of pink. This is another poem that I brought to the Guilford Poetry Group. They gave me some really good advice. It's called Beatitudes, so you can hear that it's in conversation with my biblically themed poems. Beatitudes. Blessed is the woman who must cover her face both day and night, for she shall protect her complexion and unwrinkled skin. Blessed is the woman who must not leave her home, for she shall learn the ways of patience and the embrace of walls. Blessed is the woman who cannot feed her child, for she shall learn to fashion cookies of mud and laundry starch. Blessed is the woman who bears a son, for she shall not be forced to leave her baby girl on a barren hillside. Blessed is the woman who cannot read or write, for she shall learn to memorize her protest songs, place them in the mouths of other women until they surge like water under pressure, until they turn into a witness carving into rock. This is another Santa Fe poem. Morning Song. This morning, coffee in a flowered mug sweetened with vanilla, yogurt mixed with berries. A friend, a mother, shares the cares of happy and unhappy children. The phone at rest. It might have been otherwise. Enter two dogs on leashes, their jump and rumba, like 2-year-olds eager to get going, start up their day with lick and spit. Should they obey, sit, or leap into my lap? They love me. Of course they do. How could it be otherwise? A text. I love you, Mommy. She is not 2, but 29. The spontaneous outpouring of a daughter I once held on a slender leash, she, eager to be attached, directed, now married, miles away. It might have been otherwise. Another text. Sorry to ruin your trip. There's no one else I can talk to. My other daughter, trying hard to please 2 people, like the dogs, Ricky and Ginger. How to balance the yes of joy with the no of consequence. This may, I pray, someday be otherwise. And finally in this section, visible. Beneath the brook that swirls in from the upper bend, then tumbles out of sight beneath a footbridge, stones shine like gray pearls. Minnows zigzag in their glitziness as if they have a mission, invisible to us. Beneath the brook, my daughters dip their fingers, stir it up, content with just each other and with me, a rare occurrence. The leaves a patchwork canopy, the grass as soft as prayers. The children babble as if they have a mission, invisible to me. Beneath my thoughts of dinner, homework done, not done, my struggle to control their juggle for position on our family tree. A language, eerie as a kikawa, bubbles up. Notes of shifting leaves, the water's gloss, bird calls, the minnows with their minnow music. Beneath all this, a moment of pure peace, when a secret life turns palpable, becomes a silken cord that links us to the water, trees, birds, even to the minnows, as if they have a mission to hold us to this place, this grace. And finally, mystery, and this book is a lot about mystery. I try to keep the questions open, and as Evelyn said, the mystery began when I found a painting painted by Bernardo Strozzi in the year 1630 called The Madonna of Justice. The poem is called The Stirring. I find her at the Louvre, posed on a balustrade, arrayed in stiff white collar, cuffs, dark blue robe, capped with red silk. Mary's hair shines in a rich brown haze. A naked Jesus lifts his arms as if he wants to play. She looks beyond the baby, points to a book that's looming under her, twice as big as Jesus, inscribed in Latin, Suprema Lex Esto. The law is supreme. Lex, Old Testament, filled with regulations. Eat no blood, no shellfish, cover your hair, hide yourself when bleeding, divorce by turning round in circles. Something stirs inside me. The way my baby, 6 months in my belly, would jut out her heel. My baby, not yet named, who claimed me in her urgency. I pushed her body back in place. I needed her to wait until each toe was fully formed, until her feet could stand her weight. Secrets of the Robe. Through centuries, Mary's robe was sanctified, spoils of a war she never chose. Red silk embroidered with signs of power, beauty, and the animals, and the appetites of animals. Could Mary be like Helen, the symbol of a conflict over foreign lands, Egypt, say, Assyria, or Palestine? A woman who could launch 1,000 ships, prompt men to set off on odysseys of years at sea, a search for home, a God to call them chosen. On her teenaged frame, she bore a weight she neither sought nor understood. Beneath her robe, she chafed at its raw underskirt, threads of chambray, stiff and frayed. The robe concealed her ankles, knees, her doubts about divinity. And the final poem in this collection is called This Is Not a Prayer. So listen and see whether you think it is or is not a prayer. This is not a prayer. This is not a prayer of thanks. If it were, it would burst with gratitude for sun, its limpid rays on peonies in May, the acrid underwaft of zinnia or marigold, a furtive lurking. If it were, it would utter thanks for what I held. The baby spit up on my shoulder, perpetual rocking from one foot to the other, packed tight as in a rowboat, adrift in circles, no destination but each other. This is not a prayer for explanation. If it were, it would wonder why the scales of justice seem oddly balanced, why the rain still falls so equally on the just and the unjust. If it were, it would wonder why the years of standing by, attending to small rituals, have gone unremarked. Why Christ returned to show the men the holes that reached his hands, yet never thought to find his mother. This is not a prayer of surrender. If it were, there'd be no need to weed the garden, manicure its borders, choke out dandelions or bittersweet. The questions about who loved whom, who left or died or why, would drain of zest, their power to energize. If it were, there'd be no words, no liturgy, no cry for justice or reward, no answer, but in mystery, a slice of dark, the closet door ajar. And then I finally wanted to share with you some of my more modern mystery poems. This one is actually not that modern. The poem is modern, but the incident is 40 years old. And it's about the Robert Frost poem that I'm sure you all know, that begins, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. 2 roads diverged. 1. 40 years go by. 40 years since my poetry professor said the poem doesn't mean what you think it means. A comment that didn't seem to matter as it wasn't on the test. Back then, I was infused with optimism, that happy ending gene, like a racehorse at the starting gate, smelling violets and alfalfa, content with blinders, happy to focus on the finish line, the weight of jockey almost imperceptible. 2. When did she turn her head? When did she say, "Not today"? That day of slight humidity, a gentle breeze ruffling up rebellion. I'm not racing anymore. The winner's circle won't compensate for this shuffling into vans, another track, another bored exercise boy. The constant switching of jockeys was unnerving. She'd never feel the weight of Roy again. Never feel him urge her with his inner thighs. Never feel that they were one in their intention. He'll leave me right this afternoon. Pull on another stable's colors, ride another horse, forget my name, unless I win. And even then, I'll be just a face in a wall of winners. 3. I see it now. The road less traveled leads to desolation. No new hills around the corner. The track circles wide, but it circles. We're right back where we started. Why the sigh? That's what I'd overlooked, trusting to my happy gene. The sigh. If it was such a perfect path, if everything was heaven tromping down the one less traveled by, then why the sigh? One word, so easily overlooked. The professor knew it and knew we wouldn't know. I am filled with steam, like an iron left on when everyone has scattered to their tasks, their world of to-do lists bulging in their pockets. And I remain upright, my steam slowly evaporating. No linens to put straight, no sheets to smooth, no ruffles to press out. I am filled with buttons, pearl white, snipped off shirts threadbare at the collar by a neat frugality that imagines uses for 40 small white buttons. Tucks them in a metal box. Louis Sherry candies. No candy, just buttons. Symbol of the unity of left and right. They clatter as my steam subsides, no useful purpose hovering on their horizon. I am filled with scraps, handwritten snippets, forlorn phrases, interspersed with notes for groceries, ingredients for recipes I'll never try, filled with half-remembered, one-sided conversations. Do you always have to? You are going to love. You'll always be incomplete. Wandering words, searching for a verb, a modifier, a way to fill them up. And finally, I'd like to read a poem in honor of my dear friend Stuart Friedman, who was a astrophysicist, someone who completely perplexed me in his ability to go to work every day and search for something knowing he would not find it. Flying with the man who looks at nothing. The man who looks at nothing eyes the universe, twists a shock of hair as he considers probability, what is there, what could be, hypotheses requiring massive hunks of metal apparatus to hurl neutrinos, quarks, particles that might set off a spark, a release of energy, the kind that shifts between a woman, say, lined up for a mocha latte on a Tuesday workday, and the man who jostles her confronts a hunger she didn't know was eating at her. Then the man who looks at nothing stops twirling, as if the curl relaxing on his shoulder could shift the laws that govern speed or depth or sound. The certainty we reach for, flailing out our arms at night when there's maybe someone or not someone, but nothing we can hold or get our minds around. This afternoon, we're in a glider, looking down at trees that hide my street, a street that seems so solid, straight, its lights perched on neat poles, sidewalks, white center lines, covered up with what appears to be a canopy of green. I'm flying with a man who's floating free, released this afternoon from formulas, experiments, just the swish of wind we cannot see. We're held up by improbability. We dip and lift without propeller, engine, no metal, no apparatus. The man who looks at nothing is invisible to those below. And it's enough today to sense an inkling of an energy, a spark of something others look for daily but fail to find. Just as tomorrow, back at the blackboard in the lab, turning on the cyclotron, he'll miss again what he's not looking at. Elusive as a curl of hair, its sigh before the pull of gravity. Thank you so much.